In the polished sanctuary of first class, where leather seats promised a fleeting escape from the chaos of travel, Evelyn Harper felt the sharp sting of exclusion cut through the air like a blade. "Ma'am, there's been a mix-up." The flight attendant, Jared Finley, said, his voice-clipped eyes skimming past her, as if her presence in seat 2A was a clerical error to be erased. At 81, Evelyn had boarded with a confirmed ticket, gripped in her steady hands, her navy coat folded neatly across her lap. But now this young man towered over her, claiming a double booking, with the confidence of someone expecting no resistance. She saw the truth in his glance. A white businessman at the gate had demanded priority, his voice loud with entitlement, and the gate agent, Tyler Voss, had singled her out, a black elder with quiet grace, as the one to displace without a fight. "Row 26, middle seat," Jared said, offering no help, no apology, just a directive to move. Evelyn's fingers tightened on her handbag, memories flooding in segregated buses where she'd been shunted to the back store clerk's suspicious stares, trailing her like shadows boardroom slights, where her ideas vanished until a white colleague repeated them. She didn't argue. Decades had taught her that protest often cast her as the problem. "All right," she murmured, her voice steady but heavy with resignation, rising slowly with dignity as her shield, while the cabin's passengers watched in uneasy silence, their inaction a quiet complicity. How had a simple flight to see her granddaughters play spiraled into this familiar humiliation, a snapshot of the biases that had shadowed her life? It began that chilly morning in Pueblo, Colorado, when Evelyn woke before dawn, the world still cloaked in shadow. Her modest home was a haven of order, every surface dusted, every drawer neatly aligned, a testament to a life built on resilience amid chaos. Hands weathered from 43 years of teaching third grade, guiding generations through reading and arithmetic, folded her navy wool coat with care. She pinned a silver dove to its lapel, a gift from her late husband James, a quiet symbol of peace in a world that often withheld it from people like her. She polished her low-heeled shoes, pinned her gray curls with precision, and packed a small handbag, tissues for unexpected tears, a worn prayer book for solace, a photo of granddaughter Lila, whose bright eyes beamed with promise. Lila was starring in a community play in Nyack, New York, and Evelyn had sworn to be there, front row, her applause the loudest in the theater. The shuttle to Denver International Airport rumbled through dark roads, its air thick with diesel and stale coffee. Evelyn sat by the window watching the Rockies blur her thoughts on Lila's radiant smile. Dignity was her armor, especially in spaces where her blackness and age rendered her invisible or suspect. She'd navigated those spaces with grace, from civil rights marches to subtle workplace dismissals, always carrying herself with poise that demanded respect, even when it wasn't given. At the airport, she checked in early, confirming seat 2A in first class, a rare treat urged by her son, Marcus Langston. "Mama, no coach for 5 hours," he'd said, voice firm with care. "Your back needs comfort." She'd chuckled, "I'm 81, not helpless," but relented, warmed by his concern. It wasn't about luxury. It was about easing her joints, heeding her doctor's warnings about circulation on long flights. Boarding felt routine at first. She handed her ticket to Tyler Voss, whose skeptical glance questioned her place in the premium line. "2A," he muttered, scanning without warmth. Evelyn smiled. "Good morning." But he waved her on. Down the jet bridge, cold vents brushed her cheeks, leading to first class's hum, a suited man on his tablet, a woman with a latte. Evelyn stowed her bag, fingers stiff, and sank into 2A, her hips easing. The conflict struck like a storm. Jared appeared posture rigid. "Double booked," he said curtly. Evelyn blinked. "I confirmed yesterday." His jaw tightened. A gentleman needs it. Please cooperate. She glimpsed the man, white-suited, rewarded for his complaint. Racial bias crackled. Black elders like her were often displaced, assumed compliant. Passengers looked away, the suited man buried in his screen, a mother with a baby avoiding her gaze. Evelyn's heart stung, echoing 1968's colored teacher doubts 1995's store shadows. She rose, knees aching, retrieving her bag unaided. No one helped, indifference masking complicity. Past the curtain row, 26 loomed a snoring man spilling over the aisle, cologne sharp. A teen by the window, earbuds in scrolling. Evelyn slid in seatbelt, stubborn. She stared ahead, invisible. The man's elbow brushed her. She shifted knees, cramped hip, pinching her doctor's warning ignored. Flight attendant Sarah Klein passed, eyes skipping her. No water, no nod. Evelyn thought of Marcus's gift. You deserve ease. A gum wrapper lay under the seat, a mess she couldn't fix. The cabin dimmed for takeoff. Evelyn sat still, her dignity a rebellion against a world that diminished her. This spark of injustice would soon ignite, exposing biases that bound her in silence as the plane taxied toward a reckoning she couldn't yet foresee. Marcus Langston stepped onto Flight 237 with the quiet authority of a man who carried power lightly, but never invisibly. At 6'2", his lean frame and tailored charcoal jacket cut a sharp silhouette against the jet bridge's sterile light. Fresh off a red-eye from Tokyo, his eyes were tired but sharp, his leather satchel slung over one shoulder, phone buzzing with unread emails about server audits and vendor contracts. He barely noticed the hum of first class as he boarded, his mind still tangled in the complexities of cloud security layers, but his focus snapped into place the moment he glanced at seat 2A. It was empty. His mother, Evelyn Harper, should have been there. Her navy coat folded neatly, her presence a quiet anchor. Marcus paused, his boarding pass in hand, seat 3C, deliberately chosen to be near her. The absence hit like a warning bell. Something was wrong. He scanned the cabin, first class buzzing with pre-flight chatter, a woman sipping coffee, a man scrolling his tablet. A flight attendant, Sarah Klein, approached with a rehearsed smile. "Good morning, sir. Can I help you find your seat?" Marcus's voice was calm, measured but carried weight. "I'm in 3C, but my mother was assigned 2A. "Where is she?" Sarah's smile faltered, her eyes flicking to the empty seat. "Oh, there was a last-minute seating adjustment," she said, voice thinning. "A system error double-booked it." Marcus tilted his head, unconvinced. "She checked in yesterday. Confirmed early. That seat was hers." Sarah shifted, her tone tightening. "Sometimes these things happen. You're welcome to sit, sir. We're about to take off." Marcus didn't move. "What row is she in?" he asked, his voice steady but unyielding, the kind honed in boardrooms where decisions shaped fortunes. Sarah hesitated, then turned, murmuring, "I'll check with the crew." She disappeared behind the curtain into economy. Marcus waited, silencing his buzzing phone, his jaw tightening as he processed the implications. He knew this wasn't just a glitch. His mother, a black woman of 81, had likely been dismissed, her presence questioned in a space where she didn't belong. He'd seen it before, the subtle slights, the assumptions that she was less deserving, less important, rooted in the same racial biases that had trailed him through corporate America, where his success as a black CEO was often met with surprise or skepticism. Sarah returned, posture stiffer. "She's in row 26, middle seat. No other seats were open." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Row 26, middle." The words carried a quiet storm. "May I see her?" Sarah opened her mouth, then nodded. "Quickly, sir. We're finalizing boarding." He moved past her, parting the curtain into economy, his steps deliberate, scanning rows 18, 21, 23, until he saw her. Evelyn sat squeezed between a snoring man spilling over the armrest and a teenage girl lost in her phone, her hands folded tightly, staring at the seat back. She looked small, not frail, but diminished her dignity, a quiet defiance against the cramped indignity of her seat. Marcus felt a surge of anger, not loud but deep, the kind that had fueled his rise from a scholarship kid to CEO of Virexa Systems. "Mama," he said softly, leaning in. Evelyn turned her face, softening. "Marcus, darling, you made it." Her voice was warm but tired. "Why are you back here?" he asked, keeping his tone low. "They said my seat was double booked," she replied, voice hushed. "It's all right. I didn't want trouble." Marcus's jaw tensed. He looked at the tight space her knees pressed against the seat ahead, then back toward first class. "Come with me," he said. "You're not staying here." Evelyn sighed, hesitant. "I don't want a scene." "You won't make one," he said firmly. "I will." She trusted him, as always. Slowly she unbuckled her seatbelt, retrieved her handbag, and stood Marcus's hand gently guiding her back. The snoring man barely stirred. They crossed the curtain, Sarah meeting them halfway, her expression faltering. "Sir, I'm sorry, but," Marcus cut in, voice calm but steel-edged. "I'd like to speak to the cabin manager." Sarah hesitated, then signaled to a woman approaching with purpose. Diane Carter, lead attendant, her badge gleaming. "I'm Diane, sir. I understand there's confusion." Marcus didn't waver. "No confusion. My mother was moved from her confirmed seat 2A to a middle seat in economy. No one helped her. No one explained. I want to know why." Diane straightened her jacket, glancing at Evelyn, who stood silently, coat folded over her arm. "I apologize, sir. It was a gate reassignment. The seat was needed for another passenger." Marcus's eyes held hers. "She checked in yesterday. Early. That seat was hers." "Who was it reassigned to?" Diane faltered. "A last-minute request at the gate. I don't have the details." Marcus's voice stayed even. "Then, get them. And I'd like the name of your operations manager for this route. I'll be contacting them." Diane's eyes widened slightly, sensing the weight of his presence. "Sir, are you with the airline?" she asked cautiously. "No," Marcus said. "I'm with Virexa Systems. I signed your cybersecurity contract last month. You might check the vendor memo." The air shifted. Diane's lips parted, but no words came. She knew the name Virexa was no small player. The racial subtext hung heavy they'd dismissed. Evelyn, assuming her blackness and age, made her expendable. But Marcus's status as a black CEO flipped the script, forcing them to see what they'd ignored. "I don't want a scene," he continued. "I want my mother in her seat, and I want you to understand this kind of treatment gets noticed." Diane nodded quickly. "Understood, sir. We'll reseat her in 2A immediately." She turned to Evelyn, softer now. "Mrs. Harper, please let me assist you." She helped Evelyn settle into 2A, adjusting her coat, offering a blanket. Jared, the first attendant, avoided eye contact, retreating to the galley. Marcus took 3C, his presence a quiet anchor beside his mother. "You okay, Mama?" he asked, voice low. Evelyn smiled faintly. "You always were better at standing up." He chuckled softly. "Learned from you." The engines rumbled as the plane taxied first class. Quieter now, passengers stealing glances. Across the aisle, a man named Jared Finley, not the attendant, but a passenger, watched his phone already open, capturing a subtle photo of Evelyn and Marcus. He'd seen it before his own mother, a black woman dismissed in similar ways. He typed a caption, "Elderly black woman bumped from first class until her son boarded." He didn't yell, just made them listen. He didn't post it yet. Wi-Fi was off for takeoff, but as the plane lifted, the moment lingered, a spark waiting to ignite. Evelyn sat calmly, unaware of the storm brewing beyond the clouds, her dignity restored, but her heart still carrying the weight of a lifetime's slights. The plane hummed at cruising altitude, a deceptive calm settling over Flight 237 as it soared toward Pittsburgh. Evelyn Harper sat in seat 2A, her navy coat folded neatly, a glass of ginger ale in hand, watching clouds drift past like whispers of a quieter world. Beside her, Marcus Langston reviewed emails on his tablet, his face composed, but his mind still simmering from the confrontation that had returned his mother to her rightful place. In row 4, Jared Finley, the passenger, not the attendant, scrolled through his phone, the photo he'd snapped of Evelyn and Marcus glowing on the screen. He'd hesitated to post it during boarding, but now, with Wi-Fi flickering on, he typed a caption with deliberate care. Elderly black woman bumped from first class for no reason. Her son boarded, made one call, and she's back in 2A. He's the CEO who runs their cybersecurity. This is what happens when they think no one's watching. He hit send as the plane leveled off, unaware that his words would light a fuse, turning a quiet indignity into a roaring public storm. In the cabin, whispers rippled. A woman in row 5 nudged her husband, showing him Jared's post, now live on X. "That's her," she murmured, nodding toward Evelyn, who remained oblivious, sipping her drink. The man across the aisle, still glued to his tablet, glanced up, his eyes flicking between his notifications and the mother-son duo. Another passenger, a young woman in row 7, leaned forward, whispering to her friend, "It's trending already." The post had gained traction during the flight's first hour, shared by passengers who'd witnessed the incident and others who recognized the story's weight. By the time the seatbelt sign chimed off, it had 500 reposts each. Amplifying the racial undertones, a black elder dismissed her seat, given to a white businessman only restored because her son held power. Commenters on X raged, "This is why I don't fly with them." Racism and ageism in one move. Another wrote, "She shouldn't need a CEO's son to be treated right." Stories poured in, black passengers skipped for service. Elders ignored, the quiet biases of air travel laid bare. Evelyn, unaware of the digital firestorm, adjusted her blanket, her fingers tracing the silver dove pin on her coat. She'd felt the cabin's eyes, but chose to ignore them, her focus on the horizon, on Leela's play, waiting in Nyack. Marcus glanced at her, sensing the shift in the air. "People are staring," he said quietly. Evelyn's lips curved faintly. "Let them. I'm where I'm supposed to be." Her words carried the weight of a lifetime, navigating spaces that questioned her presence, classrooms where parents doubted a black teacher's credentials, stores where security hovered, airports where her first-class ticket raised eyebrows. She'd learned to let silence speak, but the cabin's murmurs told her this moment was different, though she couldn't yet grasp how. On the ground in Pittsburgh, during the flight's brief layover, the airline's operations team caught wind of the post. A 24-year-old content manager, Leighton Ruiz, sat in a cluttered office in Austin, scrolling TweetDeck as mentions of the airline spiked. "We've got a problem," he muttered, calling his supervisor. Viral post about an elderly black woman bumped from first class. It's at 10,000 reposts and climbing. The supervisor groaned, pulling up gate logs. Tyler Voss's name surfaced as the agent who'd reassigned Evelyn's seat, his body cam footage requested to confirm the decision. A PR team in Parsippany, New Jersey, scrambled, drafting a statement. "We're investigating this matter." But the X comments were merciless. "Investigate. She was moved because she's black and old. Your system picks who to ignore." Another. "Your values don't mean squat if this is how you treat people." Back on the plane, a flight attendant named Gloria, older and kinder than Jared, approached Evelyn and Marcus. "Mrs. Harper, Mr. Langston," she said softly. "Can I get you anything? I heard what happened, and it wasn't right." Evelyn smiled, her eyes tired but warm. "That's kind of you." Marcus nodded. "Water for us, please. And ginger ale." Gloria's sincerity stood out, a small gesture in a sea of indifference. But the cabin's attention grew heavier. A man in row 6 tapped his phone, showing his wife the post, now at 50,000 views. "Her son's a CEO," he whispered. No wonder they backed down. The racial subtext burned Evelyn's worth had been questioned until Marcus's status forced acknowledgement, a pattern too familiar to black travelers. As meal service began, Evelyn picked at her chicken, her appetite dulled by the morning's wait. Marcus declined food, opting for a salad, his focus split between his mother and his buzzing phone, his assistant warning of PR firms circling. Across the aisle, a passenger leaned over. "Ma'am, what they did to you wasn't right. Glad you're back here." Evelyn nodded, surprised but composed. "Thank you." Another woman offered to buy her a drink, her voice loud with solidarity. The cabin felt like a stage Evelyn, its reluctant star. Marcus leaned closer. "They're talking, Mama." She sighed. "I don't need their noise. I just needed my seat." Her words cut deeper than she intended, a lifetime of being overlooked because of her race, her age, boiling into quiet resolve. In Pittsburgh, as the plane touched down, the post hit 100,000 views. Jared Finley's caption had evolved, shared with added context. "This isn't just about a seat. It's about who gets seen and who doesn't." The airline's ground team flagged the issue to senior management, who huddled in a conference room watching a grainy video someone in coach had recorded of Evelyn's walk to row 26. Her slow steps, her unbowed posture, Jared's dismissive gesture. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real, and it stung. The airline tweeted a weak defense. "This does not reflect our values." The backlash was swift. Your values ignored her until her son showed up. Evelyn, stepping off the plane with Marcus' coat over her arm, had no idea her story was now a beacon, illuminating the quiet racism and ageism that thrived in unchecked corners, pulling others to share their own stories of being unseen. As Flight 237 taxied to its gate in Pittsburgh, the digital storm surrounding Evelyn Harper's displacement churned far beyond the cabin's confines. The X-Post by Jared Finley, the passenger who'd captured her quiet return to seat 2A, had exploded past 2 million views, its caption now a rallying cry: "Elderly black woman bumped from first class for a white businessman. Her son, a CEO, got her seat back. This is about race, age, and who gets ignored." Commenters flooded the platform with stories of their own. Black passengers skipped for service, elderly travelers dismissed disabled flyers told to wait. The narrative had shifted from a single seat to a mirror held up to systemic bias, and Evelyn, unaware, sat calmly in the terminal, her navy coat folded over her lap, watching planes glide by. Marcus Langston beside her scrolled through urgent messages from his assistant, media's calling. "Bloomberg wants an interview. Your board's watching." He silenced his phone, his focus on his mother, whose silence carried a lifetime of navigating the same quiet slights, now fueling a public reckoning. Evelyn's thoughts drifted to the past 1960s classrooms where parents questioned her authority, 1980s banks where tellers scrutinized her ID longer than others, the subtle weight of being black and female in spaces that assumed she was less. "How long has it been since you were treated like this?" Marcus asked, his voice low, breaking her reverie. She shrugged faintly. "I lose count." "You don't tell me because you'd be hoarse from speaking up?" He nodded, recognizing her silence not as surrender, but exhaustion, a strategy honed against a world that often refused to hear her. Their bond, unspoken but ironclad, grounded them as the terminal buzzed with passengers stealing glances, some whispering, others snapping discreet photos. Two teenage girls approached, hesitant, one clutching her phone. "Are you the lady from the plane?" she asked. Evelyn glanced at Marcus, who smiled faintly. "I suppose so," she said gently. "What they did was awful," the girl said, eyes wide with concern. "Someone should have spoken up." Evelyn's gaze softened. "Next time you speak, She said her words a quiet charge that lingered as the girls walked away, nodding solemnly. In Parsippany, New Jersey, the airline's executive team huddled in a windowless conference room, screens glowing with the viral video of Evelyn's walk to row 26, her measured steps. Jared Finley's dismissive gesture, the unspoken bias laid bare. Annette Cosgrove, the director of public image, stared at the footage, her jaw tight. "She didn't even complain," a junior analyst murmured. "That's the problem," Annette snapped. "We got caught ignoring someone who didn't fight back loudly enough." The VP of Customer Relations cleared his throat. "What's our exposure with Langston?" Annette flipped her notepad. "He's CEO of Virexa Systems, our cybersecurity vendor. If he speaks, we're done in public opinion." The room fell silent. They'd underestimated Evelyn, assuming her race and age made her invisible only to be blindsided by her son's influence. The PR team rushed out a tweet. "We deeply regret the incident on Flight 237 and are reviewing our policies to ensure respect for all passengers." It landed like a damp squib drowned by replies. Too late. You only cared when her son showed up. Your policies failed a black woman. Fix that first. Marcus, meanwhile, wrestled with his next move. His board urged him to speak not for clout, but because his silence felt like strategy. He wasn't one for the spotlight, but this wasn't about him. It was about his mother, about the countless others who'd been shuffled aside without a voice like his to intervene. In the terminal, a woman approached Evelyn, her voice soft. "I saw the post. My dad was ignored like that once at a check-in counter. He's black, too. It hurts." Evelyn nodded, her eyes kind but distant. "It does. But you keep going." The exchange, brief but raw, stirred Marcus. By the time they boarded the connecting flight to Newburgh, he'd decided. Back in his White Plains office the next morning, he sat at his desk drafting a statement. After hours of revisions, he posted it on LinkedIn, cross-shared to Virexa's site. "My mother, Evelyn Harper, was removed from her first-class seat on Flight 237. She didn't raise her voice or demand. She moved because she was told to. The only reason she's back in 2A is because I showed up and someone decided I mattered. But she mattered before I boarded. She mattered when she taught for 43 years, raising generations. This isn't about outrage. It's about who we choose to see, to respect, when no one's watching. I'm not calling for firings. I'm asking for decency, especially for those who don't have a loud voice." The post surged, shared 200,000 times in a day, resonating with raw clarity. Comments poured in. Your mother's dignity spoke louder than any protest. "This happened to my grandma, too. Thank you for saying it." A black airline employee messaged privately, "I've seen this for years. Your story's making us rethink training." Evelyn, back home in Pueblo, declined to read Marcus's post. "You say what you need," she told him. "I've lived mine." But when a young intern from the Atlantic drove 2 hours to meet her, asking why she hadn't pushed back, she paused. When you're black and old, raising your voice can make them hear less. Silence makes them wonder why. Her words, simple yet profound, became a quiet anthem spreading through articles and posts, naming the incident the Harper effect, a moment exposing the loud truths hidden in quiet injustices. In the weeks following Flight 237, the ripples from Evelyn Harper's quiet stand spread like echoes in a vast hall, touching lives far beyond the confines of an airplane cabin. Marcus Langston's statement had ignited a broader conversation, but it was Evelyn's unspoken grace that lingered in people's minds. At Virexa Systems, Marcus authorized a new initiative called Guardian Flight, a discreet partnership with airlines to enhance passenger dignity protocols, real-time feedback tools for elderly and minority travelers, mandatory bias training for crews, and audits for seating disputes. No fanfare, no press release, just action, born from the pain of seeing his mother diminished. Airlines quietly followed suit. One revised its reassignment policies, requiring explicit consent for moves involving seniors or people of color, a small but tangible shift prompted by the viral backlash. In boardrooms, executives referenced the Harper effect, a term coined online for how one overlooked moment could expose systemic flaws in respect and equity. Evelyn, back in her Pueblo home, remained detached from the frenzy. She had no social media, no interest in headlines labeling her a symbol of resilience against racial and ageist bias. But the letters arrived like gentle rain envelopes stuffed into her mailbox, some handwritten, others typed from strangers who saw themselves in her story. A retired nurse from Peoria wrote, "As a black woman in healthcare, I've been pushed aside too. Your silence said more than my protests ever did." A young man in Tucson shared, "My grandma was ignored at an airport gate last year. She's gone now, but your story made me write to my senator about policies." Evelyn read each one slowly, folding them into an old cookie tin on her shelf once for sewing supplies, now a repository of shared humanity. The notes weren't about fame. They were confessions of invisibility, admissions of regret for not speaking up, promises to do better. One anonymous card read simply, "We saw you." Marcus called every evening, his voice weary from interviews and meetings. "You sure you're okay, Mama?" he'd ask. "Better than most," she'd reply, her tone steady. "And you, all those spotlights." He'd chuckle. "It's worth it if it means the next person like you doesn't end up in row 26. Evelyn paused one night, her words thoughtful. It wasn't just about the seat. It was about being seen or not. People don't want revenge. They want to stop fading away. Her insight, drawn from decades of navigating racial slights, being the only black teacher in her school, enduring microaggressions in stores, facing assumptions in travel, resonated deeply. Marcus knew her silence had been a teacher's tool, planting seeds of reflection in a noisy world. Months later, an unexpected voice emerged. Devon Mallory, a young woman from seat 26F, on the same flight, published an op-ed. I watched her walk to the back, saw the dismissal, and did nothing, she wrote. I looked away, pretending not to see. But that day cracked something in me. I'll do better now. It wasn't viral, but a friend mailed it to Evelyn, who folded it neatly into her tin. The piece captured the bystander guilt that the incident had unearthed, prompting schools like one in Trenton, New Jersey, to use Evelyn's story in civics classes on age and racial bias. A student essay read, "We talk about youth rights, but elders especially. Black ones get erased like they're done." She showed they're still here. On a mild spring afternoon, Evelyn sat in her backyard garden, legs wrapped in a quilt, chamomile tea steaming on a patio table. The air carried lilac and soil scents, birds flitting around feeders she'd refilled. It was quiet, not lonely, but the kind that demanded nothing. She hadn't flown since, not from fear, but because home held everything she needed. Now, letters, calls from Leela. The garden's bloom. Marcus phoned as the sun dipped. "Caught you before tea," he teased. "You're late?" She smirked. "The pot's empty." He laughed, then softened. "The program's rolling out. Slow, but it's changing things." Evelyn sipped her tea. "I didn't start it." "You did." "No," he insisted. "You did by just being you." She gazed at the fence past the tomato patch, reflecting on the letters. Some angry, some sad, all echoing the same ache, invisibility compounded by race and age. People wrote like it was their story, she said. And it is. We all want to be asked, to be seen. Marcus listened, letting her words hang. In her garden, a bee hovered on a flower, wings pulsing. Evelyn closed her eyes, feeling the breeze, not to ponder, but to exist. Later, she'd open another envelope from a Milwaukee gate agent. "We're trained for speed. not softness. Your story's changing that. She added it to the tin now, overflowing a quiet archive of change. As the sun set, casting long shadows, Evelyn whispered to herself, "No one should fight to be seen." She didn't seek a foundation in her name or a book deal. She wanted the lesson of Seat 2A remembered, not the displacement, but the return, and how noticing matters. In her stillness, Evelyn Harper taught the loudest lesson: quiet strength could shift the world, making the invisible undeniable one ripple at a time.